Hey, hey, we're back again. So we have James from Targon, one of the I think wasn't Targon one of the first teams or first sort of people within Bittensor? It was like you and Rob
Yeah, that's
Discord, weren't
correct.
you?
October 2023, Subnet 4 was registered. It's the oldest subnet actually, because one's still there, but that's like a classic. It's a different one, right? You got more UIDs, you got more everything, and then
Yeah.
2 and 3 have come and gone many times, changed hands.
So I have to ask, you stumble across a random Discord page called Bittensor. No one's in it. You and Rob decide to just pop in, and there's two other people. There's Shib and Jake. Like, like what? Like,
Oh, well, you got half the story right. So Rob did that.
oh
I
right,
came around a little bit later. I was in 2022 actually. I was working at GSR at the time,
okay,
and I did stumble upon it was still pretty deserted even in 2022.
yeah,
There was no market, and then I had the ability to create, that first market with some of the initial liquidity providers at the institutional level. And then
right.
we got on Mexi in March of 2023, and then Gate, and then all these other exchanges, and then now we're on everything: Coinbase and Kraken and
Yeah.
Binance.
Wait, so you and Rob, you own Manifold like together?
Yeah, correct. We formed it together in December of 2023. At the time, we were both at Open Tensor actually. He
Ah,
was we joke he was the first technical outsider, and then I'm the first non-technical outsider to really join the project and become a cheerleader. Cheerleader
nice.
first, and then you start to really understand how it works, and then
Yeah.
you can both cheerlead and be practical and all that good stuff.
So how many subnets work within your big sort of Austin BitTensor base?
So Austin, people have been telling us it's the capital. I guess. I mean, I don't know what the capital would be if it's not Austin. But we have Subnet 4 here.
Toronto, that's where it would be.
It's true, true. Toronto is actually a pretty good one. We'll be we'll be going there in August actually with our friends Subnet 11, who we work
Hey,
very
yeah.
closely and who we power in the spirit of revenue search. We actually do real work, if you'd believe it. And and then we got Subnet 34 here as well.
Yeah.
And we have people coming in and out. Who else is here? Subnet 77. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Cool. Well, we're going to have to go over there, Siam. That's what we're going to have to do. Do some
You
revenue search live. That's what we're going to need to do.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, I like Austin. It's lovely. So you said that you were non-technical, James, and that's music to my ears, because that's exactly what revenue search is. I'm not technical either, so this is absolutely perfect.
That's good.
So revenue search, yeah, we're not trying to be novelty search. We're trying to really dig into the revenue. So our audience is people that are perhaps not as technical as lots of people that are involved in Bittensor. So with that in mind, could you give us a really clear explanation, articulation of what the goal for the subnet is and what it does, so everybody can understand it?
Sure thing. Subnet 4 is quite simple, actually. If you're a miner, you're likely a compute owner or someone who can access compute at a very, very good price. You bring that compute onto the network. You do a very simple thing, which is pass NVIDIA attestation, which can cryptographically prove that, because NVIDIA has the private key, that device is NVIDIA-certified. And then all of our inference runs inside of a trusted execution environment, which means that the miners can't see your data, which we had to build because when we were initially trying to do revenue, it's funny, when I came to Bittensor in 22, 23, whatever the hell you want to call it, I said to Rob, I said, I think we can go to the enterprise. You and me, we can go right now. It'll be such an easy sell. They cut the bill in half because inference is one of those things. GPUs are one of those things. It's not, you can't really compare it to the CPU cloud actually, because the dollar terms are so high. If you're spending $10 million a month, which is what a lot of these companies are spending, if I tell you I can save you 10%, it's $1 million a month, 12 million a year. So if I'm going to come in and say, oh, we got great software on top, you won't believe how good the software is. If I'm the client, I'm thinking, oh, well, for $1 million a month, I can probably hire a good team. We'll just replicate the software. So it's a very, very capital intensive business, which is why we, as a subnet, historically, historically has been like a couple months, right? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Historically, but we've had sell pressure because the miners must pay their bills, whether that's cooling bills, co-location bills, or some of them are renting from other providers because they got a good deal. Then they got to pay the provider out. And so they sell all the time. But to answer your question and to not ramble, Subnet 4, Targon, allows people from all over the world to bring NVIDIA-certified hardware onto the platform with which the team, I kind of call it decentralized demand, right? There's an ecosystem on top. Right now, a lot of these people who are selling Targon happen to be in Austin. But over the long run, I think anyone who holds the token has the ability to access via the validator the compute on the subnet, which today is about $70 million worth of premium hardware. I think we have about 1,000 H200s at the moment. We're working to add H100s, perhaps the B200s, and maybe more importantly, a lot of the lower cards, the L40s and these more lightweight gear that is more efficient economically from a gross margin perspective.
Okay, we learned a few things about the importance of a T or T's environment when we had John from Shoots on a week or so ago, didn't we? So that was very, very important for him, and that must be very, very important for you. Is the privacy side of things what attracts people to work with you guys?
I think it's table stakes, really, if you want to compete against Nebius. I don't really view, I don't think Bittensor should ever compete internally. It's a big belief of mine. I think that we still have a lot to prove. So we think more about how do we compete with CoreWeave, with Nebius, with these sorts of businesses, with Together, right? How do we take business from them, not from anyone else? And in order to do that, you do need some sort of privacy guarantee. Right now, Nebius is kind of backed by the power of the law, right? You can go into their terms of service and they say, we do not store your data, we do not train on your data. And that's good, but how do you get to a truly trustless solution? That's the value of a TEE. TEEs can be applied in a walled garden, call it a meta. But I don't know if that's very interesting. I think the much more interesting thing is how do you apply that so that a trustless node, a permissionless node, can run this sort of inference, and you don't have to know who the provider is.
So who's using this? Like in the main, what kind of organizations are using the service that you're providing?
Primarily, it's kind of these things that look and feel a lot like character AI. We found a lot of success there. That's where a lot of the token usage today is in AI. It's still the very early days. Some people say it's a good sign that it's kind of an interesting industry, to keep it PG-13. And so we have a lot of usage through these character AI types. Dippy's one of them. There's another one. I won't say the name because we try to keep the client name confidential for now, at least. But there's a few of these types that pay us real revenue, and it's important for them. Kind of like I was explaining a few minutes ago, the costs are so high, and we can save you 10%. It's a very easy sell, actually. You can be the world's worst salesman, and you can probably still do a decent job selling Targon Inference. Over the long run, though, I think that the much more interesting client profile, if you want to call it that, would be a venture-backed startup. Maybe they've raised 10, 20, 30, $50 million. We can grow with them, right? At that stage, at that Series A, Series B stage, you're still extraordinarily cost sensitive. You're not like a Netflix who has been locked in with AWS and they're never going to leave. And if they do leave, there's a lot of risk in like the public markets when you play at that level. So we're targeting the $10 to $50 million raised. We actually just got one a few weeks back. They're beginning to train on Targon gear. It's going well. for them so far. They work more in the defense space, where of course privacy is of the utmost importance. I think healthcare is another vertical that we're targeting. We're building out the CRM now. It's actually quite fun to build out a CRM. I haven't done it in about 2 years, but that's where we are now. We're ready to grow.
And can you talk more about the Targon virtual machine then?
Sure. I mean, what specifically about how
Right.
technical do we need to go? And you got to remember.
No, different question. Different. So I think a lot of people watching this right now will, or I know you said you don't want to, take piece of the pie from other subnets, but I think a lot of people do put, I guess, three of you sort of in the same sort of bandwagon, which is, I guess, you, Siam, so for Subnet 51, and then obviously Shoots, Subnet 64. Now I know there are differences. I guess Targon and Shoots are probably the most similar. Would you agree?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, to be honest, I really try to only focus on us. But I think what they're doing is great. I think that John is an incredible developer, really,
Yeah.
and very good for the ecosystem. But yeah, ultimately, we are fundamentally similar in that we're aggregating compute. I think that it's not necessarily a novel idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it comes down to execution and making sure that we can build this sustainable flywheel. That's the most important part. Otherwise, you'll bleed out. We had someone earlier talking, and they said, "Oh, well, why are you trying to reduce your costs? It's free for you." And I just responded, "Inflation is not free. Inflation will never be free.
Yeah.
To think inflation is free is a good way for us to end up in about 12 months' time with a token price of zero."
Zero.
So we're
Yeah.
focused on making it sustainable. I can talk more about the dynamics that we're looking to implement within the marketplace, because I would say that they're not all compute is the same, especially when you're training. I think you can get away with lower quality stuff at the inference level, especially if your customer is highly cost sensitive. But if you're looking to work with one of the bigger labs and provide inference, let's just say for an Anthropic, and you got to be you got to be airtight, and you got to have uptime requirements. Well, how do you get uptime requirements in traditional markets? Usually, it's some form of collateral, right? Okay, post 50 million, you commit to 99.9% uptime. You commit to not just pulling the machine. That's a big risk here in any permissionless market. If you pull a machine, well, then the client's interrupted. The client's interrupted, our SLA is broken. You get screwed all the way
Yeah.
down the line. Collateral will be coming soon. I think this is an important thing. I think location's important. There are metrics to define value that differentiates one compute hour from another. But fundamentally, you're correct. We're aggregating compute today, and I call it an hourly interruptible way.
Nice. So a couple of days ago, you guys posted this. So you did. Is that your first buyback?
Yes, this was our first buyback,
Nice.
actually.
And so, what sort of revenues real world revenues are you doing at the moment? Like, how long did it take to muster up 18K?
This was about 5 days. So we're doing around 3.5 a day. In
No shit.
organic revenue via the platform and via the platform. We hope to go paid on other channels soon. Yeah, this is about 5 days. So we'll continue to do this. I think this is the most sustainable way until a better way emerges. This is the
Wait a
way,
minute.
right?
So that means you're making to the top of my knowledge. That means you're making the most real world revenue out of any subnet right now. Then
I
that's
guess.
to the
Like I
tune
said,
of
I
100K
really
a
don't
month.
focus. I don't focus on other people in Bittensor. I just don't. Like I think it's
Yeah.
great. What everyone's trying a lot of interesting things. But ultimately, right, we're trying to enter what I call the real world. Bittensor is real too, but I think there's a big world out there where there's a lot of money
Yeah.
waiting to spend on inference. At any moment in time right now on Targon, we have around 150 live users just poking around from all over the world. We're noticing a lot of usage out of China, out of these sanctioned areas, which I think represents the power of a network like ours.
Right.
And they're paying, right? We have subscriptions live right now. It's a very, very good deal to subscribe. I mean, the $10 a month, you're getting $112 of value. And why are we pricing it so cheap? Well, of course, we want to attract initial users, and we believe that as you get these initial clients who maybe it's just one guy and he has an idea, as he grows, the way we make our real money is on the enterprise deal, which is 12 months termed out. You pay 25% up front. It's like enterprise sales.
So do you have a set amount or percentage of real world revenue that you use for alpha buybacks, and like how often will you?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Well, it's the best use of our capital, right? I think that the way this will look over the long run is I think people who own this token will almost treat it like, oh, I bought shares in an oil well very early, and now I get and now I just for life kind of get my 10 to 15% dividend via the sale of this commodity, right? Like that's if you own a good stock to own for us people in Texas, it's called Energy Transfer. Dividends about 8%. All they do is energy transportation, right? It's in the name. Move energy from one place to another. People pay them, and they pay the dividend out to their shareholders. I think a very similar thing will emerge here, where okay, we have stitched together this raw resource. Now, on top of this raw resource, you can make a margin, some sort of margin.
Yep.
Today, it is the most efficient use of this margin to pay it back into the flywheel, which is what we are committed to doing. We'll do it with 100% of revenues until further notice. And I think that's going to be a long time that we need to really build this up, because if you think about it, over the last few months, 100% of miner payout has been funded by speculation and inflation, which is by definition unsustainable. So by returning, at least right now, a couple $1,000s a day, maybe now it's 5 to 10% real, and now you're only 90% reliant on inflation. And a quarter from now, if we talk again, hopefully I can tell you that we're less than 90% speculation, and we're becoming much more sustainable.
Yeah.
That's the way that we're thinking about the buyback.
So how often will you do the buyback?
Well, we do it pretty much nonstop. So we just had, what was it, about $1,400 come through. So Tao just got sent to the wallet. You can track the wallet. I think it's buying back right now. And it's just going to keep buying back, right? We don't need to. We'll announce it if it's worth it, right? We wanted to announce that we're going to be doing this, but I'm not going to sit here and announce every couple $1,000 buyback. It's a total waste of everyone's time. Maybe if we have a big client and they sign and they're they allow us to use their name, then we'll announce, hey, we got whatever, $100,000 and we're ready to return it. But we need to start talking in real numbers. I think no one's satisfied with 18 grand, right? It's actually very disappointing to me that we only returned $18,000. We need to return much more in 5 days. But again, you got to remember, the Tau holders are paying a lot for this compute, and everyone's getting diluted. And we take that very seriously. We just do.
I completely get that. And Stephen last night on Twitter came up with a good metric. So Stephen Rothwell, very clever guy, and he the metric he put in his article was how efficient is your subnet, as in how many pounds of real world dollars of revenue per percent of emissions that you have. And so I think it's a good metric. It's going to be a hard one to get, because it's hard to find what revenue each subnet does, but it's a good metric.
It is. This is something we're going to be working on, as well as I think quarterly guidance. I know there's no reporting requirements here at all, but we should, right? Like, I'd like to show, okay, client 1, these are the terms. Client 2, these are the terms. Client 3, these are the terms. It's kind of an interesting world to operate in, because, well, we are so public, but we're also so early stage. So you have a lot of people crying for, oh, you got to make this much, and I hear them, because a lot of that is true. But on the other hand, there's also a lot that needs to be done in terms. Okay, can we even, in the terms of our agreement with the client, can we even talk about them publicly, right? We have to be careful there too. So I think the best that we can do in the near term is to begin just showing exactly what we're making. The buyback wallet is a step in that direction, and soon we'll have much more sophisticated reporting around it, I guess you could call it, with commentary as well, where we see the
Nice.
market going. We're very close to the market now. We have a pretty good pulse on where compute is, where prices are trending there, and then ultimately what the consumer wants. And I think the consumer is quite concerned about price, which is why free things tend to do well when it's a price sensitive market.
Well, I've really enjoyed that little bit. I mean, the tech stuff, if I'm absolutely honest, over my head. But the stuff that we're looking for here, with the questions that we're asking, is when is revenue going to come in? How much revenue is going to come in? And what are you going to do with it? And we've just answered all of those. So the answer to when is now. You've got revenue flowing in now. And the answer to how much is as much as we know
It's
of
a
any.
million, 100K a month.
That's more than any other subnet that we've spoken to. And then the third bit that we're interested in, obviously, is what are you going to use that revenue for in terms of supporting the alpha token? And 100% buyback until further notice is about as good as it gets.
Yeah. And then, so
hopefully it's a
burn
strong
it, or do
message to
you
the
lock it
market.
up?
Well, right now we're locking it. What do you guys think we should do? I have thoughts. We're talking about it right now. Like, should we burn it, or should we lock it up and just show people what's going on? What do you think?
I think there's no correct answer. So I know that some subnets will burn it because it helps the tokenomics for the long run. That's the easiest way that all alpha holders are benefited in one fell swoop. Other subnets, they are locking it up so that they're going to effectively transfer ownership of it into a DAO. That way they retain voting power when it is a DAO. And also that you then maintain the staking yield that all of that alpha gives you. So I think that's clever, because if it's locked up in a DAO and you still have the voting power and you've got some revenue coming in from the yield of the alpha, that's smart. Ideally, I don't think it will be different for every subnet, really.
That's true. If there was a syllabus for it, then we wouldn't be in an interesting
Yeah.
place. That's interesting. I kind of like the DAO idea, actually, because then you could almost build this like decentralized sales force using the yield, and you pay people out, and then as money comes through, they get their commission. So that could
Exactly.
work.
By burning it, you are burning future income or future yield, let's say.
You are right. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to buy back the equity and throw it on the balance sheet and treasury. It's like, okay, cool. But there's got to be a more interesting use of capital,
Yeah.
especially in the early stages. But I do see the benefit, and it's something we may do, right? Or we could do both. You can always do both.
So you're frustrated with the low volume of revenue that you've got flowing in at the moment. What's the plan to ease your frustration?
Well, we're bringing on a fantastic kid. He messaged me 21 times without a response. And then he said persistence is key. And then, yeah, he's really, really good. And he's going to kind of be our quant, I guess you could say. He's going to help us price things efficiently. Because when you look on open routers, something that people are very familiar with, you can say, okay, do you want to price at the absolute low end of the market? But then what does that do to volume? Or could you price a little higher, and then do you take the same percentage hit in volume? If not, then of course you want to price it higher because it maximizes your revenue. So he's going to spend all day doing stuff like that. He's going to spend a good chunk of his day as well doing outbound. There's traditional sales, right? Like I said, we got the CRM. I have 20 people ready to go, right? If anything now, because I've been saying that demand lags by a couple of weeks. So it's interesting because you get the supply via the miners, but then you kind of have an oversupply for a little bit of time, and then you got to race to go and get real demand. Otherwise, you get flooded because you have to assume they're going to sell 100%. If you don't assume that, then you're dead. You're like dead meat. You're dead on arrival. So he's going to go and maybe pull demand forward even more, and then we can return revenue even quicker. But yeah, if we're satisfied with 18K, we might as well close up shop. Like, that's deeply uninteresting. We need to be. What's the saying? You shoot for the moon and you land among the stars, or the moon, or you could get to the moon, maybe. But
Yeah,
worst case, you're somewhere.
Balls deep. There we go.
You two are both absolutely dreadful when it comes to those little metaphors. Awful, awful. The worst, dreadful that. Last night I heard Siam say, we were on a different call, and he said, and that is just this. We're just scratching the iceberg.
I never heard that one actually.
No, that's because it doesn't exist, James. That's because it doesn't. It's not a thing. It's the tip of the iceberg, or we're just scratching the surface. You can't meld those two things together and just. I thought I'm going to let it slide.
That's true.
Come on then, give us some figures. Where you aiming for the moon or the stars? You don't even know what you're aiming for, but where do you think you can get to over what sort of time frame? What have you got in your head?
Well, what I have in my head is we spend about $4 million a month in inflation to the miner pool, so that should be MRR, right? Like that's kind of where we need to go, and then that puts you at roughly 50 a year run rate, which is then you're in decent company. But then how do you get a margin on top of that? So I'd ballpark, right? Like we're kind of laser focused now on how do we hit that metric, the 4 million a month. And we'll do whatever it takes to get there. I think we have every bit of technology and will to get the job done. So we're going to do it.
Very good.
What's going to happen to the alpha token in that situation, Siam?
Up, surely. Well. Technically, if there's 4 million a month for miners dumping, then in theory it should continue going down unless there's more than 4 million a month worth of buying. Typically,
correct. I think the goal for us is to go flat, to be sustainable. If people believe in what we're doing, what Targon, the ecosystem is doing, then they can buy the token. And then if you have any speculation, then that's your margin, and then the token could in theory go higher. But as long as we can return as much to keep it stable, then we can do this for a long time, right? We'll be talking in 10 years and we'll still be doing it. We might still be at 0.06, but at least we're stable and everyone's happy and it's sustainability.
What's the biggest challenge to your sustainability?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is ensuring that we don't have these supply gluts and we can't actually meet the supply with the demand. If we fail there, then you'll bleed out. And when you bleed out, then you can kind of death spiral, and it could get ugly. Because then the supply, you get increasingly less supply, therefore increasingly less potential demand. And I don't know if that ends well for people.
Yeah, you've got to balance the two, haven't you, on the way up?
You do. So you want to go steady. You don't want to ever bite off more than you can chew. That's a lesson I've learned in my life. Just you go steady.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Well, I finished with all of my questions, and I've learned everything that I need to know, and it was absolutely fascinating. Simon, you got anything left to ask?
No, surprisingly, I haven't asked that many questions in this episode. James has been just answering things before they even pop up, which is beautiful. So
works out very, very well
I've
indeed.
been completely redundant today.
Well, that's all down to you, James. Thank you. Siam, what have we got coming up?
We have, for this week, just two. We have Max tomorrow from Score, which will be good. And then we thought Mark and I will do a bespoke or like an impromptu session and just chew the fat, chat the shit, whatever the phraseology is, about the halving and good and bad subnets.
It's not an impromptu session if we've scheduled it for tomorrow. That's not what impromptu means.
Semi-impromptu. We came up with this like an hour ago. So that's impromptu.
Good. All right. Well, we'll be back here. 2:00 tomorrow UK time with Max from Score. That's going to be a fantastic session. But for now, thanks very much, James. Really appreciate that. That has been really eye-opening session on Targon.
Legend. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, fellas.
Okay.
We'll talk soon.
Cheerio. End stream. Here we go.